I think one of the things about safety is that it touches all areas of your business. It impacts, not only does it impact your operations in terms of like how you're doing the work, but it also impacts, your ability to recruit and retain key employees, your ability to compete in the marketplace, the perception of your brand, in the marketplace. And so it's much more, it's a much more important piece than maybe some other apps, some other solutions that are out there. I think safety is a very, very important thing. And regardless if you're using software or not to manage it, it's something that everybody should be investing in a good, strong health and safety program.
Welcome to Contracting Combos with me, your host, Ryan Groff. This show is all about bringing value to the contracting community at large. So what I do is I interview people who are making a real difference in the contracting community. And what we do is we have conversations about how to help members of the industry grow. We believe that if people are growing, the industry is growing, everyone will benefit. And I foster these conversations. So glad you're here. Please like, share, comment, and thanks for tuning in. All right, so welcome to this next episode of Contracting Combos. I'm Ryan Groff. I'm with Tom Whitaker at Harness Software, Harness Safety Software, and harnessup.com. I'm really pumped to have Tom here. We've been friends for quite a while here in the space and built a good relationship and been helping a lot of similar contractors and the same contractors. And so glad to have Tom on. And for those of you who are not familiar with what I'm doing, I'm really interviewing people, whether it's a technology, a thought leader, technology provider, somebody who's really making a difference and actually helping contractors grow. If they're not on here, if they're on here, it's because they're helping contractors really grow their business and help them transform whatever it is they're doing. And I'm bringing them on there because I think they're adding value they would add value to my client base or my platform. And so I have Tom here today. And Tom, thanks for coming and hanging out with me for a little bit.
Thanks for having me on the show, Ryan. Really excited.
Cool. So for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about how Harness came about and what problem that you saw and why you decided to build this company and things like that. So give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. So I'm actually I'm a Canadian. I live just north of Toronto, Canada. And about 5 years ago, I was building software and websites for a variety of different clients. And I actually had a roofing contractor client who was also employing my wife. They were having some problems managing health and safety. And so, trying to be a good husband, really, my wife was responsible for the health and safety program. And she was coming home at night complaining about how hard it was to collect the paperwork that she needed from the guys, to track all the training, to store all the documents, to keep track of things. And I said, well, let's just build a really, really simple solution. And so we built a prototype that allowed the guys to do a weekly toolbox talk, a safety meeting on their smartphones. And the response was so positive that the owner of that company came back and said, hey, what else can we add on to this? And pretty soon we had this kind of full-fledged safety management system. And that's how the light bulb really went off for me. And I thought, well, if this contractor is suffering from this problem of managing health and safety stuff, maybe all contractors are suffering from that problem, or lots of them. And so we took what we had, turned it into a product, called it Harness. And fast forward to today, and we're actually in the hands of over 5,000 contractors every single day. So like, if you told me 5 years ago that I would be building health and safety software, I'd have thought you were crazy. But here we are. It was just kind of the right thing in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things that I teach people is you can't really sell an idea. You have to sell something, like you have to sell solving an existing problem and you harness, I'm using your word here, but you're harnessing the existing problem, not trying to create some new app or something that somebody might use, but
Right.
no, they have an absolute problem. And so that's like a vortex that you follow, that your app kind of begins to follow one direction, which is we solve one problem, which is managing health and safety. So I want to talk about that, because I think everybody knows the importance of a safety culture, but is everybody really acting on it? And I don't think everybody's really acting on it. So as a sales trainer and consultant, I see that as somebody wants to portray their value and why somebody would want to pay more to go with this contractor versus another. Certainly there's an element where sharing about safety is critical. But before we start talking about how someone could sell more because they have a great safety program, let's talk about what is going to happen if somebody doesn't have a good safety program. So let's talk about that.
Right.
I want to talk about the existing problem and what does a contractor typically look like, and what is it, how are they suffering, and how much is it actually costing them to leave this problem completely unsolved if they don't do anything. So let's talk about that. Go ahead and walk us through a scenario. You can name a contractor, or not name one, but use one as an example. Go ahead.
Sure. So I think, like you said, I think one of the things about safety is that it touches all areas of your business. It impacts, not only does it impact your operations in terms of like how you're doing the work, but it also impacts, your ability to recruit and retain key employees, your ability to compete in the marketplace, the perception of your brand, in the marketplace. And so it's much more, it's a much more important piece than maybe some other apps, some other solutions that are out there. I think safety is a very, very important thing. And regardless if you're using software or not to manage it, it's something that everybody should be investing in a good, strong health and safety program. So you said, what are the consequences? Well, the very first consequence is that all construction companies by law are mandated to have a health and safety program. You have to have a written health and safety program. It has to be communicated to your employees. You have to be training your employees to recognize the hazards that exist in the work that they do on a day-to-day basis. And of course, you have to be able to prove that you've done all these things. And so, it's not an option. You must have this. And a common situation that we see is that, a company will spend some money to have a safety manual developed. They will, have it in a binder. They'll do a meeting every once in a while with their folks, and they'll kind of talk about safety. But on a day-to-day basis, there's really no activity happening. And only if OSHA shows up on a job site, or they have some type of incident, are they digging into this paperwork or into the program. And that has a number of negative consequences. Obviously, you're more liable for OSHA citations. OSHA citations can be issued for violation of any of the regulations regarding health and safety in construction, and they're going up in cost. So every time a serious violation is issued now, the cost can be upwards of $13,000. The more serious violations, in excess of $150,000.
Okay.
So there's a strong economic piece to this, but also some of the negative consequences of having kind of a lax health and safety program is if somebody gets hurt, especially if you're a smaller contractor. If somebody gets hurt, not only do you lose a valued team member, somebody who is probably your friend, a part of your family almost, that you're working with every day, you lose their productivity, but there's a number of costs that go along with that. Rises in cost of insurance, civil claims that potentially arise. And so, that's kind of a nightmare scenario. Those kind of situations put smaller companies out of business. And so, I really can't understate the value of having a good, strong health and safety program and making sure that the right activities are happening on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, to ensure that everybody comes home safe at the end of the day.
So in 1 year, if somebody gets a citation, a minor one, and then maybe a major one, that could be $100,000 problem. And then if they lose somebody, or somebody gets hurt, God forbid somebody dies, but somebody gets hurt, what would an annual additional cost look like there? What do you think? Give me a round number. I just want to give it a dollar amount of how much a $7 million commercial roofer with a half safety program, what that potential cost looks like. I just want to know, like, in round numbers. So we're looking at 100,000 plus what additional costs?
Yeah. So the National Safety Council estimates the cost of a relatively serious non-fatal injury at about $400,000, and that factors in things like the loss of productivity, the impact on the rest of the organization, direct costs for healthcare, as well as the increased insurance costs that might go along with having an incident of that type. So $400,000. That's a lot of cash.
So we're talking about $500,000, right? And that's not like $500,000 that you've already factored in. That's like going right to the bottom line. So if you're, a $20 million company netting 10%, which is great for a commercial contractor, that's a quarter of your profits. That's a $2 million net. You might as well suck out another $500,000.
Right.
If you didn't do, that's just like, that's like a typical, like, conservative estimate of cost.
Yeah. And the actual costs, that figure that I mentioned, that's actually a kind of an average cost across the construction trades. When you factor in, roofers, who, you and I deal a lot with roofers, those injuries, roofers typically experience more severe injuries. They're falling from a roof or, off a ladder or something. And the severity of their injuries is often worse than if, they slipped on a slippery floor or something. So, I would say that for a lot of our roofers out there, the costs can even exceed, the figures that we're throwing out here. So, it really is, when I think about it as a business owner myself, I really believe it is the nightmare scenario. Like, having somebody hurt on the job, severely hurt, where they can't continue to work, is the nightmare scenario for me. And if I'm an owner of a contracted business, I feel like I need to do everything that I possibly can to avoid that kind of situation. But financially, it could ruin me.
So let's take the finances out. So let's pretend that doesn't really freak an owner out and they're like living on the edge. Other than that, why would they not get a proactive safety program in place?
Well, I don't think if you asked any owner, anybody that, do you care about safety? I think the answer would always be yes, we care about safety. I think the next question, and the question that's the most important, is how much do you care?
Like, how committed are you? Like, how committed?
How committed? Yeah, how committed are you? Yeah.
Right.
It's not an easy. It typically has not been an easy thing to institute a very diligent health and safety program. You would have to put a bunch of pieces of paper out into the field. You'd chase your guys to get them back. You'd have to analyze the results. Who's doing it? Who's not doing it? Extract the insights that you can, make adjustments. That was primarily the obstacle that most owners faced, especially in the small and medium-sized contractor market, where they didn't have a dedicated person to throw on this. It's somebody's kind of side gig. And that's where Harness came in. That's where software like Harness really fills in the gaps. Just like my wife, who was running the service department at a roofer, she was spending 80% of her day doing her regular service related work, scheduling and talking to customers and all that kind of stuff. The other part of her time was spent on health and safety. And, that amount of time was squeezed more than, her regular time. So the software really evens the playing field and allows smaller contractors to do the things that they need to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis without having a lot of administrative headaches. And that equals the playing field. It puts them at the same level as a contractor who has a dedicated health and safety person or people doing things in the field.
Mm-hmm. So you're automating the administration of a health and safety program, right?
Correct.
So let's talk a little bit more about how you're solving that problem. And I have a couple of questions for you about that. So A, how does your technology solve the problem? And then B, how does it help a novice safety manager who's completely clueless actually have the steps and the guidance to implement a successful one?
Yeah. So the first part of your question is how are we doing that? We really play in a couple of key areas. Okay. The first thing is that we want to replace all the paper. Okay. We don't want anybody to have any paper forms in their program at all. We'll create customized electronic versions of those. It's important to mention here that when we first got into this, we built our app by looking at how things were currently done. And we tried to mimic that process as closely as possible so that it was familiar to the guys in the field who were going to end up using our app.
And proven, right? And proven.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of construction technology has failed over the years. Is they've just tried to design a new way of doing things, a new, more efficient way of doing things, and because we're dealing with construction workers who are not always comfortable with technology, that hasn't gone over real well. And so at Harness, we design everything we do from the end user experience backwards. We say, how will the guy in the field want to do this? And then we, everything from the forms that we build, the controls that we put on the screen, we think about, how do we handle guys with big, thick fingers that they're used to swinging hammers and turning wrenches. They're not used to little typing on the screen. So how do we design the app to make it work for them? And then we bring that into everything that we do. And we make sure that whatever we build is completely configured to how every company needs it. And our technology is more of a platform in that way. And so that's a very, very important piece of how we do what we do. We want to replace the paper. We want to store all the things that need to be stored. We want to make sure that everything is available anytime, anywhere, on any device that our clients use. And we want to make sure that they can get the insights and the analytics and the information that they need to keep getting better at safety over time. And we don't want them to have to hunt for that information. We want to make it plain that here's what's going on in your program and here's how you can make it better. So that's the what we're doing. There are specific activities that we replace, things like talks and job site hazard analysis, but I don't really want to get into the exact features. I just want to make it clear that we are making the system work the way you need it to work versus you having to change to fit the system.
What's coming to my mind is you probably are familiar with the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, and he talks about technology only being an accelerator, right? And so for somebody who has zero safety discipline, to have a technology, you can't expect it to do it for you, but it'll accelerate what you've already been doing. So you built it around accelerating a manual effort, and so that accelerates the manual effort. It it doesn't do it completely for you, because you still have to like you still have to input something, right? You still have to, there has to be an input to get an output. And so you're just automating the process of, you know, collecting all the papers and then finding out what was actually done, and just kind of making sure that's getting done. So yeah, you're kind of just, and it's nice, you know, you've already kind of had a beta test from a proven, you know, program, and one that's proactive, and you're just essentially automated that from the end user. So that's really cool. I mean, yeah, I'm sure hopefully I'm hearing you're getting adoption, you know, and people are getting results, which is great. So tell me a little bit more about the second question.
So the second question is, how do I know what I need to do, and how do I do it easy? Is how I understand the second part of your question.
Yeah, like I'm a clueless, and I get it all the time. Safety. Yeah, like I don't know health and safety. I'm basically an admin. I got thrown into this role, right? So now what do I do, Tom? Are you going to help me actually build it?
Yeah. And so, and that's the best part about working with a company like us, is that, you know, we've solved a lot of problems already for our contractors. We were so focused. We built the product originally for a roofer. We focused initially on the roofing trade, although now we have other trades as well. But because of that, we solved a lot of problems in that space. And so when a new company comes to us and says, "Hey, Tom, like, we've never really had a health and safety. We have a health and safety manual. We never looked at it. We never really do anything with it. We don't do weekly stuff. What should we do?" Although we're not consultants, we've seen best practices from companies of all sizes across North America. And so we'll bring that knowledge to you. We'll bring that knowledge to our new clients and say, "Hey, you know, I get it. Why don't we start you off? We'll do toolbox talks. We'll give you a basic job site inspection form. We'll store all of your safety data sheets. We'll just give you the basics that you need and get you up and running." And a lot of our clients start that way. And then as they use the system and kind of get a feel for it, their memory, you know, their imagination gets fired up, and they start to think about, what else can we do with this? And they add things onto it. And it's just a continuous learning cycle where they're doing some things, they're learning how it works, then they make some adjustments, we help them. And it goes on like that forever. We have clients that, you know, we talk to every month, and they say they want to do something new every month. And we have clients that they're just happy with the kind of the basic pieces, and every once in a while they'll kind of dip a toe into doing something new, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But we're really excited to be the partner for our clients in that way and help them over the long term, again, shave those incidents, you know, reduce the severity of any incidents they have.
Citations.
Promote it. Citations. Save them from citations. Promote that better culture of safety. Help them recruit and retain new employees. And ultimately, as they get better at safety, help them win more jobs.
Sure. Cool. That's good, man. So I want to ask, why are you different than anybody else in your landscape? You know, why would somebody choose you to solve this problem instead of somebody else? And you know, and yeah, so what's your case for that?
Sure. So, I mean, everybody thinks that their stuff is the best, but you know, I fully acknowledge that there's a lot of great technology out there. There's a lot of great apps. There's several other apps that do similar things to Harness. What I think separates us is really about two things. It's about customization and it's about culture. Okay. Customization is in the construction technology space. Customization is everything. Every client that we work with has their own forms, their own reports that they want, their own workflow, and trying to shoehorn a company into a vanilla app that only does things one way, it isn't going to work. And so our platform, completely customizable, end to end. If I logged into 3 different Harness customers' account, you would see it would look similar, but you would see all kinds of different things unique to that client. That's very, very important to get buy-in from the guys in the field. We have to make it work for them. That's how we differentiate ourselves, number one. Number two is the culture, okay? We don't believe that construction companies should have to become experts in software to deploy software to their people. And so we structured our company as a full service operation. When you work with Harness, you don't have to spend time learning how to configure the software to you. You don't have to spend time importing information from your old systems into our system. You don't have to worry about creating the resources that you need to train your people, your field personnel. We do all of that for you. Every client gets a dedicated customer success manager. That customer success manager really learns their business, learns what their objectives are, and assists in configuring their Harness account and then training the end users. We even go on site to put Harness on all of the field personnel's devices, walk them through how to use it, answer all their questions. We have Spanish-speaking personnel that they'll come out there and do that if you have a heavy Spanish-speaking workforce. So we do everything possible to make sure that our clients are set up for success. And that's different from a lot of software companies that'll say, yeah, it's this is a subscription, and here's the support help center. Have a nice day. Construction companies need an extra level. They need an extra level of service. They need an extra level of support. And so we've structured our company to do that. And that's really what sets us apart from, the app store guys or basic other software companies.
Yeah. You're definitely doing more than just providing tech. You're doing services, and, that's going to cost more for you. Which, reflects on to the market. I'm sure they're paying a little bit more with you than they are with somebody that doesn't provide that. But there's the correlated
I still think
value.
we're pretty competitive. I still think we are pretty competitive in the pricing model. When I look at other solutions in our space, I don't think there's anybody that's providing the kind of value that we do for around the same price as what some of our competitors are charging. And the ROI rise is really good. Like, when you factor in, and we have some clients, it works out to be about $2 a month per employee that they contribute for Harness. And if we can save them even a single citation, if we can help them drop their EMR rating, a single point, then, not only are we paying for Harness, but several times over.
Sure.
So the ROI is always good.
Yeah, that's great. So, awesome, man. Well, I'm glad to be able to share you to anybody who's paying attention to this video in my world, because, adding value, and then anything I could do to add value to the market is what I am all about, and all about growing businesses and people growing. And, so how can somebody get in touch with you? I know we're coming up on the Roofing Expo. You have some so let's share your itinerary. Where are you going to be? And then how can they get in touch with you if they want to chat?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we're always at the roofing shows. We do all the regional shows, Western states, Midwest, of course, the national show in Nashville in a week or so. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but the best way to get in touch with us is to get to our website. It's www.harnessup.com. You can book a demo with us there. We'll do an online meeting. We'll show you the app. We'll ask some questions about your existing safety program and how you're doing things today. And hopefully at the end of that session, you get an idea of what it's like to work with us. And then, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, my email address is tom@harnessup.com. You can email me anytime and I'll get right back to you.
Cool. And for those of you outside of Harness, you're a father and a hockey guy.
I am a father and a hockey guy. I have two boys, 11 and 4, and I have another boy who's due to come out March 19th. So
come on, congrats!
I'm halfway to a 5-man unit in hockey, and it's pretty exciting time. And it's great to have the two little guys running around.
Yeah, your wife is working with you. She's on staff there, and you guys work together.
That's right.
That's really
That's
fun.
right.
I always have a lot of respect for that. My wife does the video editing for me, so that's how we talk. It's how we work
She does
together.
a very good job.
Thank you. And
a very good job.
so does your wife. And then yeah, and then hockey, you're a hockey guy. You play men's hockey here and there, and you still get out there and bump around.
Yeah, I play. So I didn't quite go as far in the sports as you did, but I made it to a reasonable level in Canada, and now I play once a week, usually with some old guys that we've all played hockey at some level somewhere, and now we're all fat, and we just kind of bump into each other for an hour and a half and have fun. So it's
cool.
Great.
Well, good, man. Well, Tom, I know you're a real servant of the industry. You work really hard, and you really have a passion for it. And I could see a lot of contractors are adopting what you're doing and still paying you, which means they're getting value. So, so I'm really thankful to see that. I hope you do really well and continue to grow and prosper what you're doing, ultimately because you're solving a problem and adding value and, being nice along the way. So anyway, thanks for coming on, and hopefully some folks can get in touch with you and start saving some money.
Ryan, thanks so much for having me on the show. If there's anything your clients need in terms of health and safety stuff, even if they're not in the market for software, I'm motivated by my passion to help as many contractors as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to answer questions anytime. So.
All right. Well, I'm sure some folks will reach out, and thanks again.
Thanks.
You're the sunflower. I think your love would be too much. You'll be left